Great.
All right, we got one.
Live? To order the regular meeting of the Bogota BOE Meeting. I think I was loud enough. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Bogota Board of Education for Tuesday, August 27, 2024. Please stand for the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The New Jersey Open Publics Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of the public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Bogota Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted in the Bogota Borough Hall, communicated by letter to the record, filed with the clerk of the Borough of Bogota, and posted on the Bogota Board of Education website. Irfan?
Mrs. Alcalde. Mrs. Alvarez.
Present.
Mr. Alvarez, absent. Mr. Chavez.
Present.
Mrs. Cruz.
Present.
Mr. Navarro.
Present.
Mrs. Olivo.
Present.
Ms. Rocket.
Present.
Mr. Miranda.
Presente.
We have the quorum.
Also present, Superintendent Damian Kennedy, Board Attorney Thomas Coben, School Business Administrator, Board Secretary Moneyman Irfan Erfzil, Assistant Board Secretary Elizabeth Ruiz, and we have no student representative. Huh? Oh, that's right, because we have no students at school, and I'm sure they're not running for this either, right? I'd like to open the floor on citizens and agenda items only. Do I have a motion to move?
Motion?
Chavez, do I have a second? Olivo, any board discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any member of the public that would like to address agenda items only, please state your name. Do we have any member of the public? Anyone online? Can I move to close the citizen, hearings of the citizen agenda items only? Motion. Chavez, do I have a second? Second. Mrs. Rocket, any board discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to agenda, 3-1, superintendent's report. Mr. Kennedy?
First, good evening. Just a couple of updates. First, tonight, we have to give our testing presentation for the NJGPA. By code, they have to be done within 60 days after they're released. They decided to release it at the end of June. So we have to do it at this meeting. I even talked to the county super about moving it next month. He just advised doing it tonight because you have a meeting. So we will be doing a quick presentation. Staffing update. We are looking very good. We're about 99.2% filled at all positions. We have a few eight positions that need to be filled. But we are interviewing now as we speak. Summer projects, Bixby and the high school bathrooms. Bixby is just about all the way done. Those were the bathrooms added in the classrooms. High school bathrooms, 7 bathrooms were gutted and remodeled. They are at the tail end. They went through the punch list for the architects, but they have final inspection at the end of the week. So they will be available and ready for the students when we start, which we were happy about. Fields, as everyone can see, it's been a long process with DEP. All paperwork and permits have been filed and approved, and construction is in full swing. So I believe they were even working this Saturday. So I think we're going to see them down there 6 days a week, as long as the weather cooperates. CTE building, all permits have been applied for and have been granted. They will be in full swing in September with our September of 25 opening for that building. So that's good news. Summer cleaning is going to be finishing up, especially in Bixby and the high school, because we couldn't do those floors until the construction was done in those bathrooms. but we've been slowly been able to get to them. There'll be a deep cleaning. We'll be ready for our staff and students next week. Also, we'll be sending out an email. We got to schedule the groundbreaking. We got to celebrate these two big milestones for the district. So I'll be working with President Miranda to schedule some dates that works for everyone. Would like to have the full board there for those events. Welcome back breakfast is scheduled for Tuesday after Labor Day. Everyone is invited here. It's the one time that we try to get the whole district together, all staff, custodians, secretaries, aides. We like to have breakfast at 8 a.m., come together for a half an hour. I give a little spiel about what's been going on, what's good, and what we're planning on doing for the year. We are also planning the 100-year celebration of this building. So more information, we're looking to get dates that work for everyone. And then real quick, I would just like to go through our testing presentation. It's only on the one test, so it's not a ton of information, but if you just bear with me for a second, I got to start sharing. I want to share. Everyone has a copy in front of them. All right, so this is the NJGPA, which was administered in March of 2024. So this is a state graduation assessment for all 11th graders. This is based off of ELA 10 standards and Algebra 1 and Geometry standards. So it is a little backwards in a way because they take it their junior year of March, and 95% of our students are not in either of these classes anymore. But that's what it's based off of. This is the primary graduation pathways. Again, there are many different pathways that a student can graduate with, including SATs, PSATs, ASVO tests. So some of our students take this test knowing already that they have passed a graduate assessment. And that is one of the things that we deal with. This year, the cutoff score was 725. So they're considered graduation ready at 725. Participation, we had 93 participation in ELA and math. This is including out-of-district students that do not sit for the test with us. They count against us as well, though, because they're tied to us. So even though those students are not in our building, we do not teach them because they live in Bogota and we send them out of district, they count towards our count. So this year, graduation ready in ELA, we were 81%, right? The state was 81.6, so we're right on par with the state. Now, this was last year, we were at 90%, which was a really big number. And if we can stay above 80%, that is a great thing for our district, right? We like 90%, but if we're staying at 80%, there's not much to complain about there, because when you're dealing with 88 kids, we're talking 1 or 2 kids are moving those numbers a lot. Math, what we were very happy with, last year we were at 43.5% passing. This year we were at 55.3%, which is almost a 12% increase. If we continue that trend, then we're going to be exactly where we want to be. If you look here, and just so we have total transparency, in 2022, the cutoff was 750. So that's why the numbers were lower in the state and in Bogota. But then you can see that the cutoff score went to 725 in 2023. That's when we were 90%. So we were 9% over the state number. This year, we're right at it at 82%. This is ELA. In math, if you look, 36% in 2022, 44% in 2023, 55% in 2024. But we've always been 11 percentage points behind the state. This year, we caught up and actually beat them by a small few percentages. All right, we have to also show the breakdown. Because these are small numbers, if there's not 10 or more students in a specific ethnicity or race, we cannot show that because those students can easily be identified. But what I want to do point out is, and you don't see this in a lot of districts, but our economic disadvantage, right? So those students that are considered free and reduced, 80% pass ELA compared to free and reduced right? 83%. So actually, our free and reduced kids did better than our non-free and reduced students, which is, you don't see that in many places, to be honest with you. I think we do a really good job when you look at our ethnicity and our economic disadvantage numbers. I would say we are up there in the top 10 in the state. I would say that. And I asked Mr. Chang to look for those numbers. They're not out yet, but they haven't released to the public all of the districts' information, only the state averages. But when we did it last year, we were there as well. Math, as we said, continues to grow. 58% Hispanics pass, 60% white people. And then again, non-free was 58%, free and reduced was 53%. Students with IEPs is something that we are working on, is 14%. Students without IEPs is 69%. So again, we have 11 students out of district that are special ed. Those count against us as not passing. So our ELA analysis, we're on par average every year with the state, right? We did see a little bit of a dip this year, but at 90% the year before, to maintain that is very tough numbers, but that's what we strive to do. We're going to continue to provide structure, writing, instruction, and opportunities to students, continue to provide after-school tutoring and summer instruction for struggling students, look to improve rigor and support for special education students, continue to reinforce strong instructional routines, and continue to support our ELA teachers in their instructions. In math, positive trend in math over 3 years, 36%, again, with that 750 cutoff, 44% and 55%, right? So we are above the state average this year for the first time in math in a long time. So what we're going to do is continue to focus on Algebra 1 and geometry readiness, stricter Algebra 1 curriculum pacing to ensure all standards are taught, pacing guides created, admin check-ins, increased Algebra 1 instruction time in 8th and 9th grades, what we started doing last year. We're now using norm benchmarks 3 times a year to determine at-risk students, and then we are working with those students the same way we work with them in ELA, with Star Renaissance. What we're going to do next year in Algebra 2, right, is we're going to do a little more test prep as we get closer to the NJGPA and reinforce Algebra 1 and geometry. The other thing is we're trying to sell our students that it's important for them to try their best on the test because it is what we are based off of. It is what our houses are assessed at, our test scores. And we try to explain to the students that, and they're starting to get a little bit more. We provide after-school tutoring, and we still support special education students in math prep. The other test that we just have to report on is the Access for L's, and this is for our ELL or MLL learners, multi-language learners, right? So again, this is for all our students in MLL, right? It is a tool to measure multi-language learners' proficiency in English language. Students assessed in 4 domains: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. This is for all students in K through 12. They take the Access for L's 2.0. Proficiency level is 4.5 or higher before exiting. These are our languages right now, and you can see Spanish is the dominant district native language at 87%. So just to give you an idea of where we are at the high school each year. So what we can see is positive trends in the high school that continue to go up. And these are our numbers right here and participation. Again, if you look here, you're comparing 23 to 24, listening went up about 0.1%. We continue to show growth across the district. ML population remains the same for the past 2 years. So we did have a big explosion, but right now we actually have less students than we had in 2023. We're at 107, we're at 95. Some of the cases that the kids, after they pass this test, they are now out of ML classes. So our trends, our scores within all domains are steadily increasing due to data analysis and targeted instruction to address student needs. District-wide focus on infusing speaking activities to increase confidence and proficiency in ML students. The other big thing that we started last year is we're providing the mentorship opportunities for Check and Connect for older, newly immigrated students, where what we're trying to do is match them up with a teacher that speaks Spanish or their native language to help work with them, to help them through the process, to help their parents understand what's going on. And this is part of our Check and Connect, that we have the data analysis to see that when we tie a teacher to a kid as part of this program, their attendance, their grades, their overall behavior improves dramatically within a few short months. So we're going to continue looking to expand upon that. We brought it down to the middle school. We even have now some students in the elementaries that we're recognizing in 4th and 5th grade that need that little extra push and someone checking in on them. And that concludes my report. If there are any questions, feel free from the board right now to ask.
Mr. Kennedy, good job with that presentation. There's a lot that has been happening. There's a lot of progress we're making. And there's definitely a lot of effort and planning to advance in the areas that we have been stagnant, which are very, very, very few of them. And anywhere we find it or we deem it not as fast as we wanted to grow. I think this board has a desire to speed things up quite often. It rattles a lot of cages through our community, but when you're so far behind, you can only look forward, and it often comes with the speed of light. I do want to have a moment of silence, but before I go there, I just want to point out that you're looking at our parks, and it's happening. It's happening. We said it was going to happen. It's happening. Honestly speaking, I'll take it the way it is. It looks beautiful. It looks safer. That's just a statement, a personal statement, but it does look like something is happening. And outside of the fences around the entire park, when you see the fence come down, that division went away. We are looking like a granular park. I like it. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. We have almost concluded 25% of what we were set out to do, board. So give yourself a round of applause. How I personally tackle things is like what comes first, what comes next, and how it divides in percentages, just because I'm a percentage kind of brain. So I have 25% was the bathrooms, only because I knew that was coming first. Then 25% was the field, and then 25% was the completion of the CTE building, and the other 25% is the Bixby gym and the auditorium, right? So that's how, am I missing something? Okay, some of the art rooms, that's all part of that auditorium, and then the Bixby gym. So I have it broken down in segments in my mind. So as I see, I'm like, okay, 25% took off, and we're 5%, into it. It's really how I think. So it's a good thing. We're making a lot of progress. One of the other thing is that I think we all know we made some money in our interest, so we're financially trying to balance this entire thing to not to be below or over. By doing so, we also went after the re-registration. I'll take a pat in the chest here for all of us that a lot of people ask for trying to find kids or people who attended the school district that might not have belonged here or maybe did belong at one point. And this is something very interesting. I think there was a fear factor about how the residents of Bogota or the non-residents of Bogota would react to the board. Well, we proceeded with a school-wide registration effort, and I don't want to point out anything, but 60s plus children probably moved, because that's the nicest way to say it. The item didn't belong or whatever, but it really saves several $100,000, closer to $1 million when you start looking at the stagnant in the fees. But interesting enough, this is not about catching. It's not like, ha, I caught you. It's about preserving the way our growth is occurring and the space. With that funny thing being said, I'm over here saying, Kennedy, you're fine. 60-something kids, Bogota residents, and Kennedy said, and we had 27 just enrolled in our school district. So, at first I could sit here and say, hurrah, we caught you. but I think it was really more about preserving as many years as we can. People do leave town, people do come back into town. And we have a phenomenal thing that not many people can applaud is that, and I know we're not privy to this information, so I won't even bother to ask, but we know we have a pre-K program that is flourishing, that a lot of towns look at. I've heard people from Maywood say, I wish I had that. You know, they're looking at that, and maybe they look for apartments or they decide to buy homes in pretty old Bogota because we have a lot of little benefits, and this one is a big one that helps parents and young parents. So yes, we got 60-something that I don't know what happened. They just didn't comply with the rules and regulations to be in this district. But we also had 27 come right back in. It did comply with the rules and regulations. So just know that one of the things we've put in is we've, this board, worked on a program that we purchased that is now going to stay on top of, because often people, it's hilarious. Often residents say, how did you let it get that far? Well, this has been for a long time coming. First say, how did you have the guts to do it, right? I'd rather take that. But second is we've put something in place that was better than what we had, right? That will now identify when leases are expired, when things are expired, and immediately react and alert the administration, because too often people forget that this administration is teaching kids. They're looking for programs, they're mentors, they're psychologists, they're psychiatrists, they're their parents to our children. And a lot of things can't slip in a crack when you have 1,400 kids versus maybe 1,327 kids versus, you know, 100 administrators, right? It doesn't weigh the balances. So I often want to make sure that the staff knows I appreciate them, that the teachers in combination with us know that we support them, and that you guys are cherished. And I thank the board for doing this all together. Thank you. It's a lot coming, but 25% is on the way of our project, our referendum. We're doing it, we're doing it, we're doing it. Pat yourself on the back. And then I want to take a moment of silence because what I have known, the world's best Yankee fan, a true Bogosian, someone that, you know, if you think about Vinny, I didn't know him for so many years, but I've known him for about 12 living here. Vinny was a special person. When I first met Vinny, I would probably, you know, in New York City, you're used to when someone approaches you so aggressively, you kind of backpedal really fast and you're concerned. But Vinny was a kid who grew up in Bogota, went to schools in Bogota, and then he befriended Dr. Fitzgerald and a lot of other people who taught Vinny how to live his day-to-day lives. And I say this because today this board put into action with this administration an 18 to 21 program, a STEPS program, which, by the way, I was at Bixby and I had a parent speak volumes on this because there's a child in our district that's also attending the STEPS program at a younger age. And we're teaching them about haircuts and washing your clothes and shopping and this. Vinny didn't have that. Vinny had a Bogota community of kids who were big sports guys and big this, and taught Vinny how to live his life. And Vinny passed. Vinny passed, and it's a hard thing because anyone who sat with Vinny, he had a Yankee hat, he had a Yankee shirt, he had a Yankee sweater, he had a Yankee jacket, and he probably had Yankee sneakers. And if there's something that Vinny knew is Yankee statistics. And if Yankees were out of the end game, Vinny didn't watch baseball anymore.
Well, it should be.
He was a true Yankee fan, and I'm a true Yankee fan. So this guy walked his dog around town. He often walked around town and said, Frank, did you see the game? Did you see the numbers? And he had Judge in his mind all the time. And there was another one he had, and he was just a true Yankee. He was like a real Bogosian. And he was what often we forget between the political infighting and all the nonsense that does happen in the exterior of Bogota. He was what Bogota is. He found a group of individuals who have been lifelong families with a lot of big brotherhood who taught Vinny how to move on and live his life. And it hurt me because I just saw him, a few months back, and then I guess he was back and forth between some personal homes and things like that. And I would often get Dr. Fitzgerald, I would see him and he would tell me, Vinny's doing this and man, Dr. Fitzgerald is an amazing individual, guys. He's a chiropractor, support his business. He's just different. He's just different. His whole family is different. And he fixes our backs. But I would tell you this, Dr. Fitzgerald would often tell me how Vinny's doing. And you'd be amazed at what you learn and how a community comes together and they help this one individual. And that's what we kind of do. And now we have a STEPS program and we have people doing that. So in memory of Vinny and True Bogota, I want to take a moment of silence. If we could rise and stand and just take a moment of silence. Thank you. And Vinny, thank you. Thank you because you're an example. You walked around town, you didn't drive. He was everywhere. And I think he got to meet a lot of people. And I saw something go up and you'd be amazed how many people met him one time and they were like, Vinny was lovely. And everyone knows he was a Yankee fan. So thank you, Vinny. Thank you, Bogota. Thank you, Dr. Fitzgerald and all your friends. If I knew all of them, I would say thank you because if my child was in that position, if myself landed in that position, I would only hope we have friends and people, residents in Bogota that could help us. All right. So we're moving on to resolution 4.3, which is the approval of agenda items for June 18th of the open regular meeting and July 30th, 2024 special minute meetings. Is there a motion to move 4.3? Motion. Mrs. Ruckett, do I have a second?
Olivo.
Mrs. Olivo, any board discussion? Roll call, Irfan.
Mrs. Alcalde,
Yes.
Mrs. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Chavez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cruz,
Yes.
Mr. Navarro,
Yes. Yes.
Mrs. Olivo,
Yes.
Mrs. Rackett,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Moving on to 5.3, the policy section, which is approval of agenda of items 5.1 through 5.2. You have a motion to move 5.3.
Motion.
Mr. Chavez, do I have a second?
Idalia.
Mrs. Alcalde, I'll take that one. Any board discussion? Roll call, Irfan.
Mrs. Alcalde,
Yes.
Mrs. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Chavez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cruz,
Yes.
Mr. Navarro,
Yes.
Mrs. Olivo,
Yes.
Mrs. Rackett,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Moving on to resolution 625 in the education section of the agenda, which approves items 6.1 through 6.24. You have a motion to move 6.25.
Motion Olivo.
Mrs. Olivo, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Ruckett, any board discussion? Irfan.
Mrs. Alcalde,
Yes.
Mrs. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Chavez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cruz,
Yes.
Mr. Navarro,
Yes.
Mrs. Olivo,
Yes.
Mrs. Rackett,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Moving on to section 624, personnel section, which approves items 7.1 through 7.23. Do I have a motion to move 7.24?
Motion Navarro.
Mr. Navarro, do I have a second? Was it Chavez, correct?
Yes.
Any board discussion? Roll call, Irfan.
Mrs. Alcalde,
Yes.
Mrs. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Chavez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cruz,
Yes.
Mr. Navarro,
Yes.
Mrs. Olivo,
Yes.
Mrs. Rackett,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Moving on to 8.21, resolution section, finance section of the agenda, which is approval of agenda items 8.1 through 8.20. Do I have a motion to move 8.21?
Motion.
Mr. Chavez, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Ruckett, any board discussion? Irfan?
Mrs. Alcalde,
Yes.
Mrs. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Chavez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cruz,
Yes.
Mr. Navarro,
Yes.
Mrs. Olivo,
Yes.
Mrs. Rackett,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Moving on to resolution 9.7 in the buildings and grounds section of the agenda, which is approval of items 9.1 through 9.6. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Mrs. Alcalde, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Ruckett, any board discussion? Irfan?
Mrs. Alcalde,
Yes.
Mrs. Alvarez,
Yes.
Mr. Chavez,
Yes.
Mrs. Cruz,
Yes.
Mr. Navarro,
Yes.
Mrs. Olivo,
Yes.
Mrs. Rackett,
Yes.
Mr. Miranda.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Moving on to section 10.1 of the committee reports. Does anyone have any committee reports? Well, I have one. Real brief. There's been a back and forth, I don't want to use that. There was an opportunity to elaborate upon contract of the SLEO 3 and our police department, and maybe what we could have or could have not been doing. I will tell you that the borough administrator, as well as Councilwoman Lisa Coles and even Danielle Feedy attended, Mayor Danielle Feedy, Mayor Feedy, sorry. We attended a meeting of a previous meeting that might have been, maybe our request wasn't as granted. I will say that the second meeting, which we had after much back and forth and enjoying my vacation, your vacation, we recently had a meeting where our safety will be enhanced. Our working together to create safer areas for our schools will take place. Part of what we're intending to do, and I'm bringing it to the board, there's an idea of, and a lot of it is in different schools, but the current situation is STEAM. We know STEAM just is in a very little area with high traffic. And the drop-off situation, which by way of this board and taking action, improved dramatically. We remember we voted on cones and we had a drop-off section, improved. We still have some parents, or I want to say hirees or employees that drop off children, because you can't believe, you don't know who's dropping off the children, that don't necessarily comply with the letter of the law, the rules, the traffic rules, and they disobey and create a bit of congestion that causes a hazardous environment. It also causes opportunity, which I've seen close calls, for children, parents to get hit. Some parents park their cars in the middle of the street and leave. And you're there for 10 minutes screaming, move your car, because there's a whole traffic behind. So we have tried, the administration and the board, to like ask for traffic officers and things like that, which they could not necessarily comply with. However, I think they've been very proactive in going out to obtain I think the council's working on that now, an outsource for school crossing guards. Those school crossing guards, the best thing is you're now working with a pool of fish, not fish, but crossing guards, where we just had 5 or 6, and if one was sick, we were doomed. Or a cop had to work on that crossing, which didn't help the borough or any opportunity for someone to sneak in on the town-wide situation. So they have been proactive in themselves in finding an outsourcing company that would immediately send somebody to the crossing station, which is kudos to them, beneficial to us. What we think, and I think we have to sit down, right? But I want the public to know that this is what we're working on. What we need to work on, that's for buildings and grounds, and we'll come up with our safety and referendum, is to try to create a corner cutout for Main Street so cars can actually slow down and not just fly through our crossing guards who are like this close to getting hit, and do certain things that other preppy towns have. You know, I gotta tell you, sometimes you just go into these preppy towns, you think it's all about the money, it's about little changes. I call them that, but listen, better towns, better tax bases, do little things that you think are beautiful, and it's really just an opportunity to try something, and it creates little safety nets for our children, for our residents. We're gonna be working on some illuminated signs that you can, like crossing guards can hit a button or an officer, which will start blinking and basically getting cars. I think you've seen them all, right? You're about to cross the street and it starts really blinking. Cars are actually slowing down. So we're looking at those opportunities. For the public, we didn't mention it. I think there may be some construction on a grant or something that came through around Bixby in September. We're begging that they move into another month because it's like the start of school. But I will tell you that the safety measures that we're taking are gonna be much better with our SLEOs and everything else. But the reason I'm bringing this up is residents and parents in Bogota, and this is something that came from the police department, need to understand, and maybe any board member may not agree with this, and you have every right to speak up, that we fully support the police department to counteract the behavior that's transpiring in and around our schools. And what I mean is, those traffic concerns are serious. They're stopping the cars. I see them. They're blocking. I mean, there's cones. And at the very last portion of the cone, in Steve and Bixby or anywhere, where you're supposed to have the only space to pull out, they leave their car like this. So you can't pull out, and they leave.
That's hard.
And I've had people, I'm one of those guys that are like, you gotta be kidding me. I've actually said, the board have done all of this to make it safe for you, and you just block, and they leave, well, you gotta wait. And then, because there's some things about signing in your young kids, they have to go down. They refuse to park anywhere else. They refuse. And, and when you ask the police department, please do more, they counter with, well, your parents are not listening. We tell them and they say, go where the sun don't shine. And that is true, because I was present at a situation where the captain, Kennedy, myself, and now he's the lieutenant, but the sergeant, lady parks, the sign clearly says, don't stand here, with all the blink blinks, but don't stand here. And I said, and I knew, he said, watch. He went up to her, you can't stand there, man. You can't. And in front of us, as we're measuring the sidewalks and coming up with this, trying to figure out, she says, I don't care. And I said, please don't do that. She's like, give me a ticket. So I looked at him, I said, you gotta do what you gotta do. I mean, we're all witness that you politely did this, went to school, says, I'll be right back anyway. It was 15 minutes later, I was on the clock. And he issues her the summons, and she went nuts. And it was like, where's the rationale in this? I think we told you, please. So if they're doing that in the middle of all of us, that tells you what they do to one standalone police officer. I think we have to say, if this is gonna continue to happen,
Give them the ticket.
give them the ticket. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. I think we have to say, because I think often, I had another situation, you need to tell the police officers to back off. I got that recently, because they're giving a lot of tickets. And it's funny, because I know they're not, what they were giving is that one person ticket, because we're not getting enough, we're noticing. People are not waking up, they're not moving their cars, they're not doing anything. So we came up with some ideas to permanently possibly put some, when that comes around, we'll have to vote on it, but so that there's these little hole things you put on the skywalk, and you can put these metal cones, like you put them in temporarily so traffic can flow. The thing is that Mrs. Cole and Mayor said, we're gonna work, we're gonna do it. We gotta work with them. Safety in and out of our schools are important.
We need that down here too.
Yeah, I know what we
I'm
need.
so tired of people making lefts and that that poor woman
And they
that
issued a
poor
lot of
woman.
tickets, and.
almost
we-
gets hit all the time. She looks like she's about to have a heart attack sometimes.
So what I'm asking is, I'm just standing alone here. I think that often we have to be vocal, asking the attorney if there's a way that we can send a pretty comprehensive notice to the residents, say, please be cooperative, because action is gonna be taken, because it's never a problem until a child is hurt. And
Mhm.
we're sitting up here with newspapers, lawyers saying how.
Or at least give them a warning.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
We-
it. Just
We
a
need to
warning.
be proactive. Our town is so small, our streets are too tight, and we just have no other, or we're gonna spend millions of dollars cutting curves So people come in and out of school, I don't think that's viable. So just bringing it up, and I'm also letting you know that the police department has asked of us to be more, a little more proactive vocally in saying, we are going to support tickets that are merited. We're gonna support it. And we have cameras. And if you lie, the cameras are there. I don't know what that opens. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is our principals need to be respected, our administrators need, our parents need to be respected. As long as you're not breaking rules that cause a nuance for our kids,
Split seconds can make
and
differences.
change a lot.
Mhm.
All right? So that was me. There's no other committee reports? Okay, moving on to old business. There any old business, 11.1 of the section, the agenda? Moving on to, let's open the floor. Open the floor hearing of the public on absolutely anything besides my jacket. I'm joking. Is there a motion to open up the floor?
Motion, Cruz?
Okay, that was a Chavez and the second was Mrs. Cruz. Any board discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, any member of the public, please state your name.
Hello, it's me again, Sarah, the director of the Bogota Public Library. Nice jacket. I also want to thank you for your kind words about Vincent. He was a big library staple and we're pretty devastated over at the library. We're gonna miss him a lot. We were another home for him. Which leads me to my next point is we are also another home for your students who come after school sometimes. So I just wanted to go over some policies that we have in anticipation of the school year starting. Any child under the age of 12 cannot be in the library without a parent or at least an older sibling who is at least the age of 16. I just want to make that clear, you know, in case anything happens, it's just good to have one of their grown-ups around. Also, any child, any student who wants to use our public computers must have their library card with them. They can't get a guest pass. That's just to ensure that parents know they're going on our computers. And also to make sure that everyone's taken their turns and, you know, we can find out if anybody is doing anything not so great on the computer. So I wanted to go over those two things. I also just wanted to welcome all the students after school. We're going to try to have some more programs for them to participate in. We're also trying to get the teens back. So if you have any teen students who are interested in programming, please send them over to me. And that's basically it. I also just wanted to reiterate that the public library, as always, is going to be looking to work with the schools a little bit more, make sure we have all the resources that your students need here at the public library. We'll also either Mr. Tommy or I will be at the back to school nights to meet with parents individually. And parents do have the opportunity. I know it's hard for parents to get to the library sometimes, so they do have the opportunity to sign their child up for a library card electronically. That will be back up on our website next week. So if you do want to make sure your child has a card so they can get on our computers should they need to, you can go ahead and do that. And then we send their library cards right to their classrooms. So thank you so much and have a good rest of your night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys are doing an awesome job down there.
I would say this as well too. If you send me anything, policies that you want me to send out to all the students, that's probably the best way for them to get their eyes on it. So anything you send me, I could send it out from the public library.
I'll send it to you. And also it is on our website, bogotapubliclibrary.org as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Any hands? Okay, moving on to close it. Oh, let me close hearing of the public. Candidate. Demetrakis? Ms. Demetrakis? Oh, Demetrius, I'm sorry, I misread that. You're on mute. Demetrius, are you asking to speak? You're on mute. Maybe it's a mistake. You almost went off mute. Are you intending to speak? Kennedy's typing something just to make sure. All right,
Wait, because, Susan Harper said I'm online. I don't know if she wants to speak.
Susan Harper, are you trying to speak? Can you ask her? if she's trying to-
I made her, available.
Okay, it came up. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Thank you very much. So a couple of things. First, I want to commend the teachers and the superintendent for your early report and the Check and Connect program. I think it's a fabulous program. I think it's really wonderful, and it's really, I'm sure it's going to make a huge difference in many individuals' life. A couple of things. I know that Mr. Miranda had mentioned that the board had made over $1 million in high interest savings account, and that we have saved some money with respect to non-resident students. What are we doing with the money, and can some of this money be used for supplies for teachers? I have, I heard today, I saw online that teachers who are requesting wish lists, and it sort of made me pause thinking about the fact that we probably have, $1 million plus or 1.5 million potentially available, and it may not be available or maybe already earmarked. The other thing is that obviously, with the digging that's happening outside, there's an enormous amount of digging, and I'm sure you guys are driving by to see it, but of course we live behind it. This debris makes it obviously very uncomfortable for us to sit in our backyards. And we're also dealing with the repaving of River Road at the same time. What is the anticipated finish date of the field? And with all this digging taking place, has any sort of soil samples been taken, given the historic use of the fields, as well as the fact that many of those, the trees were rendered dead? We're just curious on that too as well. Thank you.
well,
We're talking about the timeline. So it's accumulating right now. There's certain rules for after, if we have to pay any arbitrage or things like that, whatever money is left is about the board discretion, that whether it's going to be used to pay off the debt or it's going to transfer to the general fund. But we're not there yet. The projects are not finished yet. Maybe we will need them to finish those projects either. We don't know at this point, but that amount of money is in our financial statements. You can see that under the Fund 30, whatever is accumulated. A little portion, like around $180,000 transferred in this year, just to avoid the tax impact to the taxpayers for the 24-25 school year.
thank you, Irfan.
And the schedule right now on the borough side is to complete that first, with the idea that we can plant the sod at the end of October so that it can settle and be ready for the spring. So that side of the field is the priority right now, so that should be moving over the next 2 months. And from my understanding, soil samples do not need to be taken because we're not moving any dirt, so that's where we.
Yeah, just to clarify, this is our third year with a 0% tax increase? Fourth? 3 out of 4? Partially, that's how we do it. The other thing I would say to Mrs. Harper, because I don't want to give anybody a hard date, as you all know, that's risky, you bring it back. To answer your question, we're tackling that side, because as you probably know very well, and most people know, there was a concern about an endangered species, which is based on the governor's recent report, is coming off that report. And we had from August 1st to January 1st to try to complete this task, or most of the task, before we have to wait due to this endangered species. If this endangered species is removed, then we keep moving forward. But it is fully the board's intention and the administration to move this project forward and complete it as fast as we can. Soil testing only is required when you remove soil from its premises, from one project. As you have been explained to in the council meetings, you've asked the same question. That's not the case in this scenario. So we don't know how fast it will be finished, but you should know that we wanted to finish properly, as diligently as possible, to get our children and our residents and our seniors back on the field, back in the park working. So that should answer all your questions.
So Frank, so Ms. Miranda, you anticipate then, I guess after the sod is put down, that the park would be open again in the late fall and the winter?
I don't use the word anticipation because people hold accountable and simply don't understand what anticipation means.
Your hope?
All I'm telling you is that you've seen the transformation of that park, and it's behold in your eyes, and many people doubted it, and it's happening. So all I can promise you is that we are working diligently. We're following up. Everybody here is on top of the schedule, and we're following and we're pushing to make it happen as quick as possible, to alleviate any burden that single residents may have, in order to give a larger residential population in Bogota the freedom and the opportunity to play on new parks. That's all, Mrs. Harper. Anyone
Thank you.
else? Yeah. Mrs. Dimitriadis? Mrs. Dimitriadis? I hope I'm saying that right.
Yes, you are. I'm sorry, I had setting issues. Great job, everybody, with the truancy issue and the upgrades to our parks. Our kids really need that, especially the truant issues. I feel like the resources should be used for our children of Bogota, and I'm happy to see that you guys carry through that. And I'm hoping that it happens like at least once a year or every other year. I don't know what the plan is for the future, but definitely should continue. Also, all the upgrades, I'm looking forward to all of it, making the high school better and the field for the children. I just wanted to make sure that for the school year that, the board and the principals of each school make themselves like their presence felt during the aftercare and before care, just working together, like the teachers and the aftercare programs, to help our children, and also to see if there's any barriers. I know last year there were like a ton of issues, be it with the homework, and I know that the Board of Ed has a contract with them, so I do hope that there's like presence there, like that aftercare and before care, honors what's in the contract. And then also another thing that I wanted to touch on, that last year, STEAM school, I know that they've been having like an issue with playground and basically it being very crowded. So some of our children have to stay indoors at certain times on beautiful days. I feel all kids should be outside. I understand the safety issue, but maybe if we could work on something during this school year where all children go outside on beautiful days, or even on days where the weather allows them to be outside. Thank you.
So I can answer a couple of those things. First, we have processes in place now that in the past, when someone would register in district, when their lease was up, we wouldn't be on top of that. So now they will be flagged in our system that they will have to present a new lease. Each year, though, we do have a residency officer, and a lot of people don't know this because we don't make it public knowledge, but we do residency checks all the time. We have someone that's, if we have a reason to believe that you don't live in Bogota, we have someone checking in on that. And we would probably lose between 5 and 10 kids a year that would move out because we found that they weren't living in Bogota. The STEAM lunch problem we did address. We're actually making it a little bit longer lunch for them because I think they're close to 350 students right now, and that's with the 6th grade not in that building. We are at capacity in that building. We just opened up another kindergarten in that building. So we are looking at ways to make sure the kids do get outside, but it is, there's not enough space for 100, 200 kids to be running around at once outside. So they're looking to stagger the recess times.
That's correct. Thank you, Kennedy. I did want to say something. It came up a few days ago. I just happened to have the opportunity to go to Bixby and meet a lot of parents. I want to welcome and congratulate, help me, Miss Ortiz. What a beautiful person and the kids, and she definitely likes kids, I can see. And a lot of people are wondering, or they ask, whether we are really doing the redistricting. We are, next year. We just thought that this was a bit too much for people to, take in the fields, the bathrooms. The reason for the bathrooms and the renovations and the addition is because we are going to redistrict the children. All right, so if you could remind everybody the grades, Steen will be.
Right now, Bixby will be preschool through second grade, Steen is third and fifth grade. The hope was to get the eighth grade out of the high school, but with our numbers right now, there's no room. And this is the biggest building in the whole district, so we're gonna reevaluate after this redistricting, but like I said, right now, between Bixby and Steen, I have close to 650 kids. That's an all-time high, and that's with 200 kids in the middle school and then another 400 up here, so we're at capacity. This is our biggest building, so to take those kids out, it would be, unless we get lucky and we can find somewhere else to put the pre-K, that would open up some more classrooms. But the idea is we're trying to keep some of our pre-K in our buildings with the parents who are part of the high school.
Have we ever thought of, we'll talk about that, but, so there's a lot of things being done, and now it's concrete, it has to happen. There was a purpose for this whole referendum, and it was to try to alleviate, but as you can tell, even then, 2 years forward and things change, a redistricting will happen. A lot of people thought that because we did away with it this year, they would just say, oh, and I just want to say, because a lot of people also complain, do I really have to walk to Steen? I was in New Milford the other day, and I did not realize, because most people who don't live, New Milford is not, if you, 1.9 miles, the kids are walking. They walk to the elementaries and to the high school, so they could do it. We're such smaller town, we're not even a mile, no matter which direction you go, it could be done, right? So we just gotta work together and enjoy Bogota. It's a really nice little town, and it's gonna look better. But that's all. We have a motion to close.
Not yet.
Mrs. Rutherford.
Everyone needs to be reminded to go ahead and fill out their lunch forms.
Yeah.
Everyone's getting the text messages and the mail sent home. But I know in the beginning, it was always like a moment of stop. Okay, we didn't do this part. Please, 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 whatever documentation was sent to you or is on your parent portal, go ahead and fill out those documents and do your lunch forms. So that it's already in the system and ready, and you don't get those emails or your kid comes home and says, they said I don't have an account. Take care of that now.
Yeah, I'm sending out a beginning of the school year newsletter that has all that reminder information. That'll probably go out on Friday to everyone, so.
Be one more time after every day.
And the other, and then the other thing that and this is gonna be a newsletter too, we have, our website's been updated. Mr. Calero and his team has done a wonderful job in our IT department. But also, we have a great app now. And the app, you can sign up for push notifications. And now it's a lot easier to get those messages right on your phone. So be on the lookout for that. Again, the newsletter has all that explained, and a simple QR code to scan and get the app. But the app looks good on the eyes. It has a lot of information there. It's easy for us to update our calendars now because it's tied to our Google calendars that we've always used. It's easy for us to share things on social media with another app now that ties it in to Facebook, Twitter, our website, and notifications to you that we sent something out. So just be on the lookout for that.
Mr. Calero, thank you. I remember complaining about a website, and he said, you didn't know? Oh, and he pulls out all these things. He had a whole website going, and Kennedy was like, oh, he got you there, right? He's so proactive. It was a great investment. I don't know if that's, Thank you for staying with Bogota and giving us your expertise. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons for that is how they work together. And we had like old IT people, not to discredit them, but we had, what I mean by old is we had companies and partners that have been here forever. And like everything, when you stay forever, you stay to the same thing, or you bring younger vibrancy, he started bringing in new IT ideas, part of these applications, and we're seeing a major transformation. He's working with some of our kids to help him. And I just learned something the other day, that if a kid is able to hack his system, he brings him in as a consultant. That sounds like the FBI in Bogota, so kudos to you, it's a lovely thing, because hopefully one day they come work in Bogota and bring us more ideas. So do I have a motion to close?
Motion.
Second,
So that was Mrs. Ruckett, Mrs.
Miss Alcalde,
I'm sorry. Oh,
MS. I like to go by MS.
Miss Alcalde, I'll tell Miss Alcalde soon. And do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion. All
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.
And there is no Mr. Alcalde.
Sunday, sir.
And there's no Mr. Alcalde. I'm a feminist. I didn't change my last name.
Okay, there is.
My husband's padrón.
Oh, it's control, okay. Oh, so I can put it like this one.
This is a.
Oh, wow.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I know, I love this. You know, it's true, he's Mr. You're not a goddamn patrón.